The resurrection of Jesus Christ is something that really is grounded in historical evidence. There are two lines of argument you can use for the resurrection of Jesus. One is that the tomb was empty. There was no body found. No one suggested that they could find a body. The other one is that so many people claim to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. Even people who are very skeptical about the resurrection of Jesus do at least admit that people sincerely believed very early on that he was risen from the dead. And when we look at the variety of resurrection appearances that we find within the Gospels and the other parts of the New Testament, we find it's truly amazing. Jesus is said to appear to people individually or in groups ranging from 2 to 500. He appears in the morning, in the evening, he appears indoors and outdoors, he appears in Judea, he appears in Galilee, he appears up a mountain, he appears by a lake, he appears standing, sitting, walking, he appears always talking, he appears by prior appointment, without prior appointment, and sometimes even appears eating with people, and this is not just something far off, really close up. This is the sort of encounter people have that you can't just say is like a religious vision they have in some dream in the night. This is described in very tangible terms. Now you could say, of course, that those accounts are made up, but the problem is you have to have an awful lot of different individuals lying and claiming to have made those things up. You can't say it happens through hallucination. It's simply too vivid for that. Some people like to say that it might be group hallucination. But really, when a group of people sit around, let's say they're having hallucinogenic drugs, they don't all see the same thing. They don't all have the same vision in their mind. There's no way that if you had a group of people all having visions of Jesus, they would see the same thing. But what we find is that groups of up to 500 see Jesus risen from the dead. And it's those two things together, the empty tomb and the resurrection appearances, that make a very strong argument for the resurrection. Now, someone say, couldn't it just be some conspiracy? Couldn't some people have stolen the body? But if some people steal the body, that doesn't explain lots of people saying sincerely that they believe Jesus rose from the dead. People say, well, maybe Jesus didn't really die. But then we have to say that the Romans were very good crucifixionists. They knew how to do it. And there was no way someone could survive being put on a cross. Even if they were taken down shortly afterwards, they'd probably have died anyway, and they certainly wouldn't be able to appear victorious afterwards. But there's a third line of argument that you can use about the resurrection, and that is that it's not just that the empty tomb and the resurrection appearances happen to any old person. They happen to someone very particular, Jesus Christ, about whom we know an awful lot of material, very interesting things independently. We know that Jesus Christ, for instance, taught the most remarkable form of the golden rule, that you should do unto others what you'd have them do to you. No one before him had ever taught such a clear ethic. He was also someone who was believed, widely believed, to be the Jewish Messiah. Again, that was a really striking thing. So it's not just that you have the resurrection body, we have the body disappearing. It's not just that we have resurrection appearances. It's also that this happens to someone who has remarkable things held and believed about him early on. So we really have three lines of evidence: the remarkable person of Jesus, and we also have the empty tomb and the resurrection appearances. And I think together they do make a very strong case for the resurrection. Now, some people say, I find it difficult to believe in a resurrection because that's a miracle. And I believe in science, and science produces beautiful patterns, and a miracle really disturbs those patterns. I'd want to say to that person not to worry about that, because actually it's not that the patterns are disturbed. What I'd want to say is rather Jesus is the new organizing principle. It's not that the patterns are disturbed, rather he makes the patterns with his life. All the remarkable things happen about him.